Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hartz, and today I'll be breaking down the 10-game NFL slates we have here for Saturday, Christmas Eve, going into Sunday. That is right. So we have 10 games for Christmas Eve, which is this Saturday, which is tomorrow, and then we have a few games on Sunday. So another full weekend of Christmas festivities, Christmas games for the NFL and NBA. Can't wait for that. Should be a great weekend in terms of DFS. So today I'll be breaking down the 10-game NFL slate for this Christmas Eve. I'll be going over my favorite spin-up plays, mid-range options, and value plays. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, check out my NBA slate breakdown for the NBA Christmas Day games, as well as the NFL Sunday games. As always, guys, make sure to follow me on Twitter at HeartDFS. Answer any questions you guys have, talk NBA, NFL, and PGA DFS, all that good stuff. You can check out on my Twitter. Linktree has my free Patreon as well as my YouTube description down below. Now, for this slate, the first thoughts is it's going to be pretty chalky, and I'm going to eat the chalk for this slate. $1 million up top to first place. There's always ways to get different when it comes to the wide receivers you pick and tight ends. But for the first look, obviously we have Derrick Henry going against Houston. Derrick Henry is $8,600, so he's pretty pricey. But as we saw from the first game against Houston this season, 32 attempts, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, almost a 40 bomb. So he's going to be very popular. It really just comes down to his ownership. And then we have, Josh Allen going against against the Bears, who give up a ton of points. He looks fantastic. And then obviously the Seattle and Kansas City game, going to be super chalky, with all these players from this game, but for good reason. It should be very high scoring. Two offenses that have great pieces. It's just going to be a fantastic game environment, and it's going to be super chalky for that reason. So for the quarterbacks, and I'm going to be building a lineup in this video, so stay tuned for that. Hit that like button. But yeah, for the quarterback situation, it really comes down to if you want to go with the chalk. If you want to go with the chalk looks great. Josh Allen against the Bears, Patrick Mahomes against the Seahawks, and then I will mention Geno Smith. Those 3 plays are going to be the standout plays at quarterback. So if you want to go with them, they look great. My favorite out of those 3 would probably be, I'd say, probably Josh Allen, just because the safer floor when it comes to the rushing upside. I'd say it's him, but all 3 look fantastic. And then in terms of secondary options that you guys can look at, I think my 3 favorite would be Justin Fields. Not the best spot here against Buffalo, but we saw what he did against a very solid team, a very solid defense in Philly, good defense in the Green Bay, and then solid defense in Miami, not the best. Dallas, 26. So he's been fantastic the past few games. New England at New England 24. So he's had a very solid floor and very solid ceiling the past few games. So really like Justin Fields there as a secondary option to those chalky quarterbacks. Do like Joe Burrow, a good amount, 7,000. Doesn't offer the rushing upside, but he's been very solid in terms of his fantasy output with those 2 receivers and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So that's kind of the quarterback situation. From there, you can get to other guys maybe a Dak versus Philly, not the best. They kind of have a funnel running defense, so maybe they just run more with Dallas. Kirk Cousins against the Giants, he's been great the past 2 games. They're playing in a dome, so the weather shouldn't be a factor. So you can look to him, but I really just like those 5 quarterbacks. So those guys are going to be in my player pool for tomorrow. So we'll just build a lineup from those guys. Let's just, for the sake of the video, let's just go with Geno Smith from that player pool. The running back situation, there's 10 guys I really like who are going to be in my player pool. I will go over them, but we have Christian McCaffrey at the top. He's going to be your safest option, I'd say, as at a running back position. He's had 15 plus attempts pretty much in 3 straight games since Brock Purdy has started. And then he has huge upside when it comes to catching passes. 10 targets, 3, 8. So we know he's a very safe floor, very high upside, priced about right at 8,800. So it'll be interesting to see the ownership because I think a lot of it is going to go to guys like Derrick Henry, Barkley, and kind of down below. I don't think a lot of people are going to get up to Christian McCaffrey. So for that reason, you can definitely play him. If he's at pretty low ownership, he'd make for a great tournament option. But we'll have to see with the ownership. Same thing with Derrick Henry, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. It really comes down to his ownership. He's going to be super popular. If he's 25% or below, don't mind playing him. But if he's going to be like 30% or more and like this big milli maker, I just don't think there's a need to play him at that price tag, because there's a lot of options who have similar upside at, way cheaper price tags. So it really just comes down to ownership play for the two guys at the top. I do like Saquon Barkley a good amount here against the Giants. We know he has huge upside. Pretty much that whole offense for the Giants as well. So really like him. Nick Chubb, you can get to him. Not the best spot. He is touchdown dependent, as we've seen in the last 3 games here. But they will rush him the ball, even if they are down. Dalvin Cook, not the most efficient, okay spot against the Giants. I really, really like Ramondre Stevenson here. They are down in this Las Vegas game, and they're still running the ball. So it doesn't matter the game script. He's going to get those rushing attempts. And if they're down big, he's going to be in there to catch passes. We've seen games, he had games 8 attempts or 8 targets, 7, 6, and 10, and then 8. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter the game script. Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a huge part of it. So I really like him against, Cincinnati, a game they should be down. So he should see a ton of targets out of the backfield. Really, really like him as a play for tomorrow. This mid-range, Kamara looks decent there against Cleveland. Not the best, rushing defense. He just hasn't been great, so his ownership should be pretty low. Great spot here against Cleveland, a team that does give up a ton of points. Obviously, the Saints are not the best team in terms of offense. As you can see, Kamara's really struggled since week 8 at Las Vegas. Really hasn't done anything since. But yeah, I mean, he is a decent option there. Below that, Kenneth Walker looks solid against Kansas City. He's going to be in my player pool. We'll get to McKinnon. He's going to be a super popular option to stack with Patrick Mahomes, as we've seen in the last 2 games. He will get a few rushing attempts, but his upside is with the passing game, as we've seen. 9 targets, 8 targets, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 35 fantasy points, 34. So McKinnon, he's definitely an option there if you're going to get a piece or 2 from that Seattle-Kansas City game. And then below that, really, really like J.K. Dobbins. He looks great. Looks like his former self. 2 straight games of 100-plus rushing yards. Doesn't really have upside when it comes to the targets out of the backfield, but I love him going against Atlanta here. Not the best defense when it comes to stopping the run. That's all the Ravens do. Huntley might be out as well, so they're going to be on their 3rd-string quarterback. So I do think they're going to rely heavily on the run, and that means more of J.K. Dobbins. So I'm going to throw him in there as well, but he's another player in the player pool. Pacheco, another guy, similar price. Seen pretty much 15-plus attempts in like 7 straight games. Will get a little bit involved in the passing game, not as much as like McKinnon, or he's kind of like a Dobbins in terms of he'll see like maybe a target or 2, but he's been very solid in those rushing attempts. And this is a game where Seattle, they give up a ton of rushing yards. They're not great against the run, so Pacheco looks like a fantastic play there. So there's a ton of fantastic plays, as I mentioned. So it really just comes down to ownership if you want to pay up for those stud running backs, but I do think he can live in this mid-range. And then from there, we got Swift, who looks pretty solid. Foreman looks decent against Detroit, even though Detroit has been decent recently in terms of their defense. Deontay Foreman's a guy who could definitely see, 15-plus, 20-plus rushing attempts here against a Detroit team that does give up a decent amount of points. And then from there, you could look to a Chuba, who does get involved in the passing game, could break off a big play. But it's really just, sticking to the guys I kind of mentioned. Gus Edwards, you can take a dart throw on him. But there's really no need to really get to anyone else. I think there's, the guys I mentioned, like 8 great plays, 10, I forget how many I mentioned. But yeah, there's a good amount of options in that running back range. For the wide receiver situation, obviously Justin Jefferson going against the Giants looks fantastic. I really like Stephon Diggs. He's just been, two games of 20-plus fantasy points, which is solid, but it just seems like he's been disappointing the past 4 or 5 weeks. 14, obviously did 2 20-point games, which he started off very, very slow in those games, and then 6 and 10. The offense for the Bills is just, kind of sputtered, but I really, really like Stephon Diggs going against the Bears there. Should be in line for a huge, huge game. So I really, really like him. And then for, Justin Jefferson's great at the top. Same thing with Jamar Chase. AJ Brown, he looks okay. I don't know if I can trust whatever his name is, Mustache Man. Where is he real fast? Minshew. That's what his name is. Completely forgot. But yeah, I don't know if I can trust Minshew. I mean, he could have that option. So I guess I will mention him. We know he's been able to go off, have huge games in the past. Or is he? 4,800. So I guess, going against this Dallas, pass rush, which is very, very solid. But we know Minshew, he's in the past, he's had huge games. He does have upside. He's a very solid, scrambling quarterback. So you can definitely go to him at 4,800. I will mention that as a dart throw. I'm sure he'll get some ownership. But with him back there, I don't know if I feel great of, targeting a guy like A.J. Brown, who's been great recently. I just don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can trust Minshew. Kelsey obviously looks fantastic going against the Seahawks. Let's go back to the wide receivers, though, for a second. St. Brown against Carolina. He's a guy who's going to see 10-plus targets pretty much every game, so he looks very solid there. DK going against Kansas City obviously looks fantastic. Going to throw him in there with Geno Smith to do that stack. Tyler Lockett is out, so we'll have guys like Marquise Goodwin step up. Noah Fant should get some more run, some more looks as well. So no real interest in these mid-range guys like McLaurin. Looks solid, but not the best spot here against that San Fran defense. Olave's out, Samuel's out, so we'll get Cooper. I always mention him. He's seen the targets, just hasn't broke off a big game yet with Deshaun Watson, but he's always in play. Juju looks very solid as a pivot play off of a Kelsey or a guy like McKinnon. You can definitely get to Juju there, who should see double-digit targets against the Seahawks. He's been fantastic this year for Kansas City recently, so I do like him. DJ Moore, has huge upside because Sam Darnold does throw him the ball, so he should have some big playability. So I do like him a good amount there. And then from there, I'll mention Gabe Davis is a nice pivot play. Just hasn't had a big game yet since the beginning of the season. And then you can definitely go to all these questionable guys if you want to, like the Saints. You can go to one of their cheap guys if you want, or you can go to Marquise Goodwin, who is questionable. If he's good to go, he looks very solid as a nice pivot play, a nice piece from the Seattle and Kansas City game. But with Lockett out, you should expect guys like DK to step up. Obviously, Marquise Goodwin, if he's good to go, he looks great. Derek Young should see some run. They could go to a Penny Hart, who did see some run over a guy like Derek Young. Eskridge is out. Thompson is out. So, yeah, they did. I think they elevated Laquan Treadwell from the practice squad to the active roster, so maybe he could get some run. But I feel safe with DK and then Goodwin. And then from there, you can get to one of these other guys. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. And that really does it for the wide receiver situation. It's really just going to be, I'm going to stick with guys from the Bills game, the Seahawks and Kansas City game, and then maybe get to a guy like a DJ Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that's really it. I mean, you can get to the like Amari Cooper or one of the Tennessee wide receivers, but otherwise I don't really have any interest in anyone else. Maybe a Lamb or Schultz, but that's really it. Moving on to the tight end situation. Obviously, Kelsey looks fantastic there. We know what we're going to get from him. It just comes down to if you can afford him. I do like building around him. Andrews just been super disappointing with that quarterback situation in Baltimore, so don't like him. Kittle has decent upside with, what's his name? Debo being out, 5 for 93, 2 touchdowns, so we know he'll get involved. It's just, I don't know if we can trust Brock Purdy, even though he's done great recently. Goddard is back, so you could definitely look to him. Maybe Minshew checks down a good amount. Njoku does see some targets from Watson. I do like Schultz a good amount here. Seen a solid amount of targets, has big playability and upside, so I don't mind him. Okonkwo has been very solid for Tennessee recently with the rookie being out. You can definitely go to him. So I don't mind him as well. Let's see who else we got here. Yeah, I'm just going to stick with going with probably a Kelsey. Oh, Hawkinson. I do like Hawkinson a good amount here. I mean, he's seen a ton of targets recently. Hasn't had a huge game, but he is definitely worth mention. So I do like him a good amount. I'm going to throw him in the lineup for now. And then moving on to the defenses, obviously, it doesn't really matter what defense you get to. Obviously, the most popular strategy is paying down, getting one of the cheaper defenses so you can pay up for someone else, because defensive price does not correlate or equal to more points. It doesn't matter how high the price is. The Bills could go out there, not get many sacks, still win the game, and only put up like 8 to 10 points, and then you guys could get like Commanders who could maybe gives up 30 points, but if let's say they get a defensive touchdown, they'll have that very safe floor. They'll probably still get like 8 to 10 points even if they give up 30, because they get that defensive touchdown. So yeah, it really doesn't matter what defense you go to. If you want to target the better defenses, sure, you can do that, but I like going to let's see here. I think like the Saints versus Cleveland look decent because the Cleveland offense has been terrible. You can go to a Panthers versus Detroit. I mean, it's Jared Goff. They've been good recently, but we know Jared Goff has some very, very bad games. From there, you can look to, the Falcons. That's a team you can punt with, because, Huntley might be out. So that might just be straight running the ball from Baltimore the whole game. So that could be a low scoring game. Ravens on the opposite side there. So yeah, I mean, there's a good amount of options at the defensive side. So let's just we'll just throw in the Panthers for now. Leaves us with 4,200 left over. We'll get to Geno. Let's just do a double stack. So we'll go to Seattle. Let's just throw in Marquise Goodwin for now. These are 4,200 left over. Who else do you want to get to? I mean, you could go to a Font over Goodwin if you want to do that. He's seen a solid amount of targets recently. He's a red zone threat. We'll get off of Seattle so we can get some other guys in this player pool. Chart, Gallup. I mean, Gallup's always an option. Schultz. Knox has been involved more recently for the Bills. 7 targets, 8 targets. So you can definitely look to him. But let's get to someone else here. No running backs. You can get to Khalil Herbert. He's back. They're elevated him off of IR. So, if he's good to go, he should see maybe 10-ish running attempts. He will see some passes. So he could be an option, but I do like getting to the last spot. I'm going to go to someone on New Orleans. Obviously, a very solid spot here going against Cleveland, a team that does give up a ton of points. Not the best spot in terms of just overall offensive ability for the Saints. Obviously, Andy Dalton has not been great, but he's been good enough to give one of these guys, one of these offensive guys, one of these receivers or tight ends on the team enough points to help out your lineup. They're very, very cheap. So Rashid is going to be kind of the main guy. He's been very solid the past few games. Almost 8, 11, and then 18. He has been getting some touchdowns recently as well, that last one. So you can definitely go to him. He's big playability and upside. So they should, he should be involved in this game, which they should be down a good amount. Tre'Quan Smith, Marquise Callaway, they should be involved. They were out of the rotation with Landry and Olave back, but both of the guys are out of this game. So, expect Shaheed, Tre'Quan, and Callaway to be the 3 main wide receivers. Maybe we see Kirk. I don't think we will. And then maybe Kevin White gets elevated. But we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, really like these 3 guys as some cheap options here. I think, you go to Rashid. He's been the most safe and consistent recently. And then you can always go to the tight end situation with Juwan Johnson, it seems like every game he gets a touchdown. I mean, since week 7, 20, then only 3, but then 12, 15, 13, he comes back, 22. So, I mean, he's gotten a touchdown pretty much every game since week 8. So you could definitely look to him. That seems to be a favorite red zone target for Andy Dalton. But I say let's just go to, I guess we'll just throw Juwan in there, do a double tight end situation. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video for tomorrow, guys. If you guys liked the video, hit that like button. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.